Hey everyone, welcome in Monday afternoon. This is Guerilla Sports Off Ice. I'm Jesse Montano. I'm going to be joined by Meghan Angley here in just a few moments. First of all, everybody, this weather outside. Yes, I know Christmas is in a week, and it's the one time of year where even I say it's acceptable for it to be kind of snowy and stuff like that. But my goodness, this is like our fourth straight 65-degree day here in Denver. And it's just wonderful. I'm just loving it. I hope you all had a great weekend. Avs pick up another win. But the story from the weekend was the league-shaking trade that brought another superstar to the Central Division. We are going to get into all of it, plus the Avs' thoughts on the deal and what it means for the Central Division. All of that and a lot more. As always, want to remind you guys about our great friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? Well, with RefiJet, you can save around $150 every single month, all which is a soft credit pull and zero hassle. It's lower payments, flexible terms, maybe even some cash back in your pocket from your car's equity. I say it all the time, guys. The best way to support us and what we're doing here at Guerilla Sports is to show some love to our partners. So head on over refijet.com/sports. See if they can't help you save a little money. Who couldn't use a little bit of extra cash back this time of year? refijet.com/sports. It is the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody, welcome in Monday afternoon, Guerilla Sports Off Ice. I'm Jesse Montano. She's Meghan Angley. Avs pick up another win over the weekend, Meghan. They get some revenge on the Nashville Predators. The sun has been out. And look, we're under 2 weeks till Christmas. How you doing?
Really good. Just had the horrific realization. We're at game 32 going into 33. We have a pyramid to do.
Oh, shit. We missed it.
It's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it.
I didn't even...
I was keeping the 30 game mark in back of mind and it slipped. So we'll make up for some lost ground. Yeah, it's okay. We're not going to try and rush it all into one. We're going to be thoughtful about it. But we'll keep that in mind as we're talking about the Nashville game and just generally this last stretch and also the big news of the weekend.
Yeah. We definitely, we're probably going to spend a lot of this show talking about not necessarily about Quinn Hughes and that trade in particular, but just what it means for the division, what it means for the Wild. And then, I guess we can talk about what it means for the Canucks, but I mean, you know what, we will. Zeev Buium, we got to talk about it. And look at that.
Off to a good start.
Already set a record that Quinn Hughes didn't have for his Vancouver debut. So good for him. Even though, I don't think there's any pressure on a guy like Zeev to, live up to what Quinn Hughes was. I'm sure for him personally.
He's a competitive, confident young player. I think this is a best case scenario for him. I think it was
really
a competitive back end in Minnesota with Brock Faber at the top. And this sort of gives him a chance to pave his own way a little bit, I think. Now, again, not to put the pressure of being the next Quinn Hughes then to Vancouver, but I think that opens more opportunity for him. It's not so different from the conversation we were having about Byram. How does he elevate in Colorado with Taves and Makar ahead of him? I kind of felt similarly for Buium. And I do think his aspirations in this league should be a top pair role in, the near future. Some development, some time is needed.
Yeah, it's a really, I liked the return from Vancouver. We're going to get into all of that. But I want to start by talking about the weekend for the Avs. They knock off the Nashville Predators on Saturday. And, Meghan, it's funny because, we're at a point in this season with the way that the Avs have played where, and again, I'm not asking for it to change. Look, as someone who's covered losing streaks and teams that don't play well and are, vibes aren't good. Like, I'm not asking for, the vibe in this locker room to shift at all. But, Evan Rawl, friend of the show, he and I were walking from the locker room to the media room after the game, and we were just like, my gosh, like, they're winning so much, so consistently. The play really feels consistent. Like, what are the storylines? Like, what do you even talk about at this point with these guys? What do we ask them? Because they're just showing up and finding ways to win every night. And I just thought, another example of that in the Nashville game on Saturday, where they get out to a quick start. Nathan MacKinnon scores. They get this 2-goal lead. Nashville has a pushback. But I mentioned it in my post game. Nashville had a nice pushback there in the middle part of the game, maybe even a bit in the third, but like never felt really in jeopardy. This Avs team just feels there's a quiet confidence to everything they're doing right now. Your perspective on the Avs, where they're at right now through 32 games and what we saw this weekend?
Yeah, I think the stats around getting off to strong starts and scoring early in games have supported some of the overall effort that we see. Like early in the season, there were some of those OT games where the Avs did have to scratch and claw their way back in just to get them out of regulation. But for the most part, I think the Avs have been a team that has been ready from the drop of the puck. And it's a small, but I believe significant detail of this team because there was a pushback from Nashville. You look back then at the Nathan MacKinnon goal in the Nashville game early under the 2-minute mark, and I think it sets the tone. And it also makes their lives a little bit easier. I think because the last Nashville game went to that weird shootout, there was that recognition of let's not make our lives any harder than we need to. And so I think that is reflected in the Nathan MacKinnon goal early. And then, the Jury goal, like it's a little bit of a weird one, but you have to be opportunistic. I think the Avs embody that as a team as well. And to your point about the storylines, it's tricky because by itself, it's like this top-ranked penalty kill was a little bit fallible, right? Like Marchessault scores on the power play, but this has still been such a good penalty kill driving consistent results. I'm not going in there and asking them, so what went wrong tonight on the penalty kill?
Exactly.
That Jared Bednar described as an adventure because it has been so good, so consistently. That's not the storyline. You write it off as a bit of an anomaly for the night. And then, okay, the power play's been struggling. That is a real storyline. It's not as if we aren't asking about it either.
Right.
And even inside the Nashville game, they're trying a lot of different things pretty newly for the first time. You're getting Gavin Brindley in the middle on the top unit, Marty Netchus in that bumper spot on the top unit. Yep. So it's different, right? So the result maybe isn't there in goals, but there were some dangerous chances that were created from the power play as a result. So it's like, okay, well, I don't want to jump the gun and gun to the head. Like, why isn't this power play working yet? Because they're trying different things and they're continuing to try different things as we're seeing from practice today. All that to say, there's still plenty to talk about with this team. For example, one of my takeaways from this game was the second line. How Jared Bednar talked about this today, but it was something I noticed the way in which, especially late in that game, when Angry Val 8 shots on net came to play, that line was coming at Nashville in waves. And you look at the force that is Landeskog, who will drive to the net front, Val Nichushkin, a freight train on skates, and then Nelson, maybe of those guys, not the most physically imposing, but he's been getting in on the forecheck and engaging in those battles. He's got that long reach. So all that to say, I really came away impressed by that second line, who on the score sheet, Val gets the empty net goal, but I don't think they got rewarded as much as they deserved. So that's the fun thing I'm looking at going into the Seattle game is I think this could be a really hard to play against line. And it's fun to see Gabriel Landeskog getting the results. Like someone asked Bednar today if they were surprised that Landeskog hasn't missed a game. That's a storyline. We can't ask about it every day the way we were when he was gone.
Right. And yeah, it's Jared talked about how he's doing the right things to take care of his body and stuff. But I asked Jared today because it was really inspired by, again, that conversation of like, well, gosh, what do we even talk about? What do we focus on? And Jared has preached process over results for years. For certain chunks of the season. At a certain point, yes, you need the results as well. But like it's his way of separating, well, did we win or lose from how did we play? because there's plenty of nights, excuse me, where the way you play, you deserve to win, but you don't. And then again, there's other nights where the way you play, you probably don't deserve any points and you get to overtime or you find a way to win. And so I asked him today, like, is that maybe, because again, I remember him talking a lot about that when the season got off to a rough start last year. Hey, we like our process. We think it's going to catch up. Like I asked him today, like, is it maybe even more important to focus on that now when you're winning every night, to make sure that you never stray away from your details, because I do feel like there is a level that teams can get to where, we'll just show up and win every night. And like we were having, and I don't actually think this for like the Broncos, but we were just having a conversation about the Broncos upstairs, or maybe he was at the rink. I can't remember anymore, but how like, they've had all these crazy, wins at the buzzer and all, and like they're finding these miraculous ways to string wins together. And you sit there and you go, all right, but you've got to make sure that you're focusing on like, hey, well, why did we have to come back in the fourth quarter? Let's make sure we're cleaning these things up so that if you ever get into a game where, in the Broncos scenario, you can't come back in the fourth quarter. Well, hey, you've cleaned up the things that, it's important to do that. And I think when you're a veteran team like the Avs, it's easier to step back and say, we just saw Nathan McKinnon. They won 4-2 and he was pissed with the way that he played. I actually think that's a really good sign, Megan, because that tells me that they are not saying, we're going to show up and we'll just win. We'll find a way to win.
Yeah.
They understand, like, no, details have to be in order, and they have been. That's why we're winning.
Yeah, I think the Avs have typically been a team this year that has gotten the result that they've deserved, and so that's where they're trying to control the controllables, and they recognize they have a lot of power to control games. And so I think as recently as the 4-game road trip, especially the Islanders game, there is recognition of if you deviate from the process, even for a single shift, this league will make you pay.
Yep.
And so I think that's evidenced in games like this most recent Nashville one, where the last one was too close and they don't get the winning result. There's a recognition then, yes, we're getting the winning results because we know if we deviate from the process even for a second, it'll cost us. And I think that it's a great time of the year to be learning it. I draw parallels to the Eagles. This is something that Mark Letestu has talked about with respect to their struggling power play too, how this is a problem they want to have in December, not in April, not in May. And this is where they're going to develop the roadmap out of these situations in real time right now. I find that to be true of the Avs as well, with respect to their power play in a lot of ways.
Well, and I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here. And I'm sure people will call me out in the chat if they think I am. But like, is there not maybe and this is definitely taking a glass half full spinning approach to this. But like, is there maybe something that you could look at if you're Jared Bednar, in the vein of what you were just saying? Look at this and say, all right, we're going to spin this into a positive and say, hey, this frustration that you're feeling with the power play right now, it's really close to how we felt in that playoff series last year. How do we overcome this?
Yes. Because composure was a word Mark Letestu used this last weekend. They were facing a division opponent and they fell short. It was in a deflating fashion. It reminded me of the way in which Game 7 broke down. Cale Makar used the word composure as well. And it's a difficult thing to teach. You kind of have to just experience situations that require composure. And you don't want those situations to arise in the playoffs, but you have to count on them. And so being able to work through a little adversity, and what's tough is the Avs haven't had much, right? So it's almost like they'll take the adversity where they can get it so that they can work through these things and really reflect on composure, because that was something Cale talked about very specifically, that kind of look in the mirror of how to be even more composed in those difficult moments, because I think this is otherwise such a mature group, but even very mature groups have to grapple with this.
Just replaying in my head when Cale's stick broke.
I feel so right. And I imagine that him talking about this, especially knowing Cale, was probably very pointed inwards and hopefully not too harshly, right? Like hopefully in a productive way, but there will be games where you get a bad bounce, a bad break. It's out of your control, but you still have to be composed.
Well, and it was actually what I really liked about the Islanders' loss and then the response to that game, because that Islanders game, they just, and you called it out earlier, like they got away from what makes them successful and they paid for it immediately. And like there wasn't a lot of pushback in that game. There was a small stretch where like they got a couple quick goals, they got some energy, but like, so that game went the way it did. You know, what you and I did that post-game show that night, and it's like, whatever. What I liked about it was the way that they responded with 2 games back-to-back on the road. And like you said, take adversity where you can get it if you're this Avs team right now. And just even small things like that. It's like all right, we can bounce
in
back
the
from
Rangers
loss.
game. What could have been a goal off a high stick when they have the extra attacker on the ice. They have to go into OT, maybe feeling a little bit deflated, like that was whack. Okay. They don't succumb to that moment, and instead they still come away with a win.
Well, and this is like we hear so much, I shouldn't say it like that. We've heard people criticize Jared Bednar before for show more emotion, get angry, yell at somebody. And it's like, those are the moments, which is why you don't do that. I don't care if you're coaching a team of 8-year-olds or a team of 28-year-olds, professionals, peewee, whatever. Good leaders, people follow good leaders. And if your leaders are freaking out, screaming, yelling at the ref, had Jared Bednar kept going at the ref after the goal, stood, calls him back over during the break in between regulation, or like that, it bleeds over into your team. They play frustrated. They start barking at the ref. And maybe you get a stick in the hands on someone. And since you just spent 5 minutes yelling at the ref, he calls you for one in overtime and you lose that game. Nope. Instead, they stay calm. They stay composed. Hey, it happened. Move on. Let's get the win. And like, those are the moments where, again, I like the way that this team is responding in the little bits of adversity that you're able to like pluck out and say, that's adversity.
Weird calls that don't go their way, like a goalie interference call, and they don't respond well to that for what it's worth. Like they don't come away with the win in the end of that game. But then the next game, right? Like they still have a response, and it's, I think, becoming quicker and quicker, sometimes even in-game adjustments that I've observed. And it all goes back to leadership. And I'm not saying that, this is what we're being told.
2 high sticks are taken off the board on Saturday.
That's a great and interesting thing, because one of them I understood, but it also got me to thinking about, should we be more concerned with that in-game where a player forces you to injure yourself? Anyways, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. I just thought, that could be a slippery slope we should just keep an eye on. I don't think it was as intentional in the moment, but
I thought, this is the only thing I have to say on it. I thought ruling that as a follow-through was
for the Val Nichushkin one,
extremely generous.
Right. Manson one, I understood.
Totally.
It was weird.
Yep. It happens.
And it feels like a slippery slope, but I won't make it an issue unless we start seeing that happening more. Val Nichushkin one, that's a stretch.
That's a stretch. At best.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, here's where it's interesting. Val showed emotion after that, but it was in a productive way. He dialed his game up. So, I don't know if composed is the word I'd use for it, but I think a little emotion is okay. Because I think Angry Nate was also difficult to play against later in that game. So I don't mind the emotion, but I'm glad it's not every single night at every given moment, because Jared Bednar has talked about how that reveals to your opponent that you're there in your head, and that's also not a good thing.
Yep. No, 100%. Anything else from this weekend, that game, how the Avs are playing before we jump over to Central Division?
What did you think of the experiment then with Brindley getting some top line minutes, some power play reps? I think it goes back to the conversation around, it's the time of year where you can try some different things, like with the power play. And it's good to get him a look there, because injuries could crop up. Like, I kind of view Brindley's future on the team this season. I think they'll build around him in a bigger way next. But this season being like an Alex Newhook role, but a more trusted Alex Newhook.
I actually asked Nate not about Brindley, but just like Jared's mixed up the lines and everybody's played with everybody. And he even said that after Kibbe went out in the game before the Nashville game. We're just like, hey, yeah, I knew once that happened, we were going to mix everybody up. And I just think Jared Bednar, I completely agree with what you just said about like, this is the time of year to do it. And I think Jared Bednar is wanting to see right now. And again, this was the luxury they had in 22 down the stretch there. Jared Bednar did this. I don't know if people remember in late February to March, Jared Bednar did this. We were seeing crazy line combinations. We were seeing different looks on the power play, D pairings that were kind of shuffled around. And when we asked him about it, he was like, I don't know what I'm going to need in the playoffs. And I want to understand what I have and what I have in all these different situations. And I think if you're looking at a guy like Brindley, can I be honest with you?
Of course.
I've actually, for as good as he's been, I've gotten a tiny bit more concerned about the size.
The size. Well,
because he's so reckless in a good way. He had another play on Saturday where I was just like, oh my gosh, dude, like you just stepped into oncoming traffic. I don't know how you didn't. And so my confidence in his ability to stick as an NHLer has done this parallel to my worry about his size.
Perfect.
And so, like I said, I just want to throw that out there. Like I worry about him in some of these, more higher up in the lineup matchups come playoff time. But doesn't matter. That's not the point of what I'm trying to say.
A new storyline has entered the chat. It is the conversation around sustainability in this league because he missed his time last year in his rookie season due to injury. He's already missed some time this year. Look, I'm not going to try and project that onto him. I am wishing him luck, but it is something to keep back of mind then is like, what is he doing to protect himself as a player while continuing to play his game? Because this is part of his game.
Right.
Is playing in the dangerous areas. Mm-hmm. And there's got to be maybe a balance here that he finds before year end. Because
like I said, there was, and I don't know if you remember what play, it was on the far end from where we sit, it was on the far end. And he just he did something where it's like, check your rearview mirror before merging, dude. Holy smokes. Like that could have been really bad. Where I'm going with this is, like you said, if there's injury or, Megan, if you just find yourself not unlike you did at points last year, or really the last 2 years against Dallas, where you say, we need to throw a different look at them. I need Marty away from Nate. I need Lecky playing with Gay. And, I'm kind of making stuff up here. Right. But I need to throw a look at them that they're not going to expect. And if and Jared Bednar had more high praise for Ross Colton on the wall today. If you know that, and I'm making this up, if you are sitting there and saying, we weren't able to generate anything through those first two periods, I'm going Nate with Ross and Gavin to start the third period to throw a completely different look at Team X that we're playing in the playoffs. And I know I can go to that line because I've seen them have success.
Right. You don't want that to be the first time you've ever seen them together.
Right.
So I appreciate that about some of the experimenting. And it doesn't stop with the top line, right? It's kind of the whole of the top nine, really all four lines, but especially that second line, that's seen a few different changes through this point. And I think that it's found success with a couple different looks. This is different, not to just bring Casey Middlestat into the equation, but there was a time where they couldn't find anything that was going to work. You'd get Jonathan Drew in there, it'd work for a game or two, and then it would stop. And I feel like this year's Avs have had a lot more luck, especially since Brock Nelson has heated up. I think he just needed a little time. Because I think, end of October, end of November, he just keeps getting better. All that to say, kind of the opposite problem. Now they have a lot of guys who work really well together.
And yeah, like you just said, you don't want to be looking at an option, a combination for the first time come playoffs. Because, and I'm going to pick on Brindley just because we're talking about him and he just got the look there. If he's playing really well and you're in a playoff series, let's plug him in there. Maybe he's not a guy that can play alongside Nathan McKinnon. Again, I haven't seen any evidence of that based on the looks we've gotten of him playing next to Nate. I'm just using that as the example of if Jared Bednar were to plug in a young player like that, and then it's like, ooh, that doesn't work. Okay, well, scratch that off in your notebook. Okay, that doesn't work. What else can we try?
Not my fave.
And again, I don't think that's been the case. I'm just saying that's what he's trying to do here.
Yeah, I think the energy Brindley brings has been good because I think it's worth noting the context of Marty not just being sick too.
Yes.
I was nervous for a minute that it was similar to the Carolina treatment of a demotion, and I just worry that that doesn't resonate with Marty Netchus and it doesn't drive the best results out of him, only to quickly correct that with information. The information being, one, a lot of the guys are battling illness, and Marty Netchus in particular got, kind of the worst bit of it here in this last stretch. So I don't view this as some sort of punitive measure.
Well, and I want to call this out too. And I'm so sorry. I should have cut the clip for it to go along, but like Jared, because he was hard on Marty after the Nashville game, or I'm sorry, Florida game. I'm sorry. He was hard on Marty after that game and said like he wasn't very, because you asked what was the thought process behind all that shuffling. And he's like, well, Marty wasn't very good tonight. Well, Marty wasn't very good because he's still not feeling well, blah, 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 blah. The next day I asked him about, a conversation that you and I have had on this show a lot of like Marty's doing the Mikko thing where he has bad nights, but he's picking up points regardless. He's consistently on the score sheet. I actually think he had like a quiet little like 8 or 9 game point streak going recently that, again, it wasn't super flashy. It was 1 assist here and there. But again, just like an example of he's doing it every single night. Right. And I said, what is it? And Jared very quickly goes, that's what star players do. And Marty is a star player. No ifs, ands, or buts. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for maybe anybody that heard Jared's comments on like Marty wasn't very good, maybe starting to have that same, thought process that you were talking to me about. And I just think that Jared wanted to kind of quickly squash like, no, we're not trying to demote him. We're not trying to put him in the corner or whatever. He's a star player. Yeah. And I just want to throw that because I thought it was a significant vote of confidence.
Certainly. And my impression too, even in the Florida game, wasn't he's being punished. It's he's being limited because he's probably not feeling well and doesn't need extra minutes. So I also think, there was something in the chat that made me think of it and it just slipped my mind.
As it relates to Marty.
Yeah, star player Marty. Oh, back on the top line.
Yes,
today. Just worth giving the update.
Worth mentioning. All right, Megan.
Now it's time.
I heard someone on a show over the weekend say, "Was this the biggest trade in the NHL in the last 20 years?" And it's like it might have been, but like there was a pretty big one last year too.
Right. So it's a little close to home. So
here's actually where I'm going to start this conversation, Megan. For those of you that don't know, Quinn Hughes was traded over the weekend in another blockbuster deal. And it feels like, Megan, gosh, this is when was Taylor Hall traded? Like 2016, 2017? This feels like the 10th year in a row where there's a trade made that elicits the response of, hey, guys like this don't come available very often. And I'm starting to get to the point, Megan, where I think in the NHL, guys like this do come available about once a year.
And, to be fair, it is about once a year, one big, big splashy trade.
Yep.
But I love it from the entertainment perspective and the kind of chips to the middle, bold, entertainment value aspect of it.
And you know what else I loved even more? It happened to Minnesota Wild beat writers on a Friday night and not us.
Oh my goodness. I remember that I was sick when the Mikko Rantanen trade happened. It was a Friday night.
Yeah.
Bummer.
It was a Friday night. Evan and Corey tell the story often. They had just gotten, because the trade happened at the beginning of an Avs like 4-game East road trip. We skipped the first game and we're doing the last 3. Evan and Corey had done the first 3 and were skipping the last one. So they had just gotten to their dinner in Boston. They had just ordered food and Mikko Rantanen got traded. So
I think the shout out of, Quinn Hughes' role in Vancouver, the number 1 guy versus Rantanen, kind of a
captain of the team for Quinn.
Quinn, right. Maybe like a 3 with 1, 2 being Makar McKinnon, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and I'm not even necessarily arguing that the Mikko one was bigger. I was more the comment of like, we get these big trades a lot.
And what I wanted to add was the surprise aspect of the Rantanen trade.
Yes.
Because we've been hearing that Quinn
I
Hughes
completely agree with this.
would be on the move potentially. And honestly, it just wasn't Minnesota. That was the destination most people were thinking. So there was still a little bit of that surprise. But the Rantanen one really did feel like it came out of left field. And that doesn't, make the overall weight of the trade greater. It just added a different layer.
Right. No, and I think that's the best way to put it is like the Mikko one felt so.
Megan was crying in her car getting Mucinex. We need a Mucinex sponsor for this show.
We seriously do. If anybody out there knows anyone who makes Mucinex,
one of the Hughes brothers is sponsored by Mucinex. I don't know if we can get in with
really?
the Hughes. Yes, I feel.
Oh, that's right. I feel like we had this conversation. Yeah,
I feel like
I had the urge to reach out and touch your finger. Mucinex parent company. Who makes
this is
Mucinex?
a really good thing to do in the middle of the pod.
Reckitt. Hey, if anyone at Reckitt or if you know anybody at Reckitt, tell them that you've got a couple Mucinex enthusiasts here.
Yeah, what's like, how different fan bases have names?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if Tate McRae's are like tater tots. I'm just assuming. What
If
are the
not, they should be.
Mucinex? All right. We don't need to do this live on air. I'm so sorry.
You see millennials.
You see. You see pies. Like a cutie pie.
But Megan, again, just like there's of course Mikko Rantanen being traded twice last year. We had Jack Eichel just a couple years ago. Matthew Tkachuk in 2022.
That was big. The return felt at the time so equal. And I think that Vancouver's return is good. It's just hard to say equal right now.
Right.
And I'm a big believer of Steve Bouillon.
So I don't know. I mean, 2023 is maybe the only year in the last several where you didn't have a big name player being traded. I mean, you can go back to 2019. Mark Stone gets traded to Vegas. Oh, these types of guys don't come around very often. When they're out there, you have to go get them. Big names are on the move in the NHL now. Not to the same level as the NBA, but
right.
This happens a lot.
It is interesting because there are the big names of the deadline every year, but they're just not quite as big as what Quinn Hughes and even Mikko Rantanen going back a year have been. Because those guys weren't necessarily believed to be guys on the move, except for Quinn as of recently being a guy that you had a belief would.
Right. So let's start with the Minnesota side of this. It's the Central Division. Cale Makar, Miro Heiskanen, Quinn Hughes, all in the same division. The Central continues to get better. Now, look, I have my own personal thoughts on Quinn Hughes as it relates to those other two guys. That being said, the results are the results. Quinn Hughes is an elite defenseman in the NHL. And look, we're going to talk more about the rest of that roster, but Minnesota's better today than they were on Thursday. No question.
No question about it. And I've always liked Minnesota's back end. I think that with Zeev in the picture too, it just rounded out its future projection. Because I really believe in Brock Faber, honestly. So just 1-2 then with Hughes Faber at the top. It's pretty good. I think that I still like Jared Spurgeon as a leader for the back end too. It just made them instantly better. There's no getting around it. I mean, they get the winning result in the first game, Quinn Hughes a game, and a decisive result at that. Already, on the score sheet for the Wild, and that doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
no, it's they took a guy like Zeev Bouillon who was like, oh, we hope we can develop him into this, and you just fast tracked it. You got the guy.
Because I think they were trying to fast track Bouillon a little bit, with throwing his feet to the fire. I don't know if that's the expression. Last year,
into the deep end,
into the Lions den.
Yep.
And you know, is a bit shaky at first. I think that immediately this is great for Zeev Buyam too. I think the opportunity is just a little bit bigger for him more immediately in Vancouver. Now, there's a lot of pressure around that too, but in talking about the way that Minnesota's constructed their back end, I think it's competitive too. And he was playing pretty big minutes in Minnesota, to his credit. All that to say, I think that Minnesota wanted somebody a little bit more immediately NHL ready for the top matchups, the heavy hitting minutes, and that is Quinn Hughes.
Thank you for saying heavy hitting. I used that word to describe him when we were talking to
Well, I said heavy hitting minutes.
Jared. No, I know, but just thank you for throwing that in there, because I said
No,
another
I didn't
heavy,
think that was silly.
I said another hard hitting defense or something like that, and what I meant was like, oh dang, this
Swing
is
for the fences.
right. This is one of the heavy hitters for defensemen, not like a
physical. I don't think you should sweat that. I know exactly what you meant by it.
Thank you. Let's look at the rest of the Minnesota Wild roster. In that decisive win, Nicholas Aube-Kubel played on Minnesota's third line. Now, granted, he was a call-up. They had some injuries, things like that. But, like, you know, you lost a couple guys off the roster. This was a move for Minnesota to say, we're throwing our hat in the ring with Colorado and Dallas. We think not only are we a good enough team to, you know, get into the playoffs, but we think we're a good enough team to not just go deep, but go through the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche. We think we've got the team to do that. Now, look, there's a lot of hockey left to be played. There's a lot that can go down here. I'm not saying they're wrong. I just look at the rest of that lineup, Megan, and I say, yeah, Kirill Kaprizov and Quinn Hughes that's a great poor man's Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. But do you have the depth both up front and on the back end to truly go toe-to-toe 7 games with the Avs and the Stars? And further, what more are you willing to do for this season and next, given that there's no guarantee Quinn Hughes will stay?
Right.
What, like you said, I love the pushing the chips to the middle. How many are you willing to push to the middle?
Well, in the Kaprizov contract, we kind of broke it down on a different show. It's extreme. I think with the cap going up and then into like year 3 of that contract, it'll actually probably stabilize a little bit. But all that to say, they are still going to be at the mercy of it in a lot of ways in how they round out the rest of this roster moving forward. And I do fear, because that is the thing looking at this roster, and there's a lot of key injuries, so I'm not going to be over dramatic. Depth still seems like an issue. Yep. And I say that as someone who covers the Colorado Avalanche and has fielded outside criticisms of this team's current depth that I think have, through this point, at least been quieted. But to start the year, I think that people didn't think Avs had depth either. So, you know, I'll say that cautiously, that I think that's the thing holding Minnesota back right now.
Because I look at that move, and now look, Quinn Hughes said that he's got an open mind to staying, and he appreciates that the Minnesota Wild ponied up as much as that. Because make no mistakes, that was a steep price that they just paid. Steep. Yes. And he said he appreciates all that. I saw, I believe it was Johnny Lazarus on Twitter this morning, predicting that Hughes would sign a short-term extension that would line up with when Jack is going to hit UFA. Yep. So again, I don't know, maybe the Wild do get 4 or 5 years out of him here. But I think that I think you have to be honest with yourself with why Vancouver was willing to trade a player of his caliber, is because they knew
he's gone. We
can't re-sign him. He wants to play with his brothers. So you'd have to imagine that's still going to be a motivating factor. Are the Wild good enough to really, really contend over the next 2 years? Kirill Kaprizov is great. He's amazing.
He's one of my favorite players.
But we all saw how long it took to build a cup-winning team around an elite winger when we watched what the Washington Capitals did from 2005 to what was that, 2018?
I wasn't born yet.
You were, I know, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I guess I should have. So the Washington Capitals are a team from, no, I'm just kidding. No, but you know, like that took them a really long time to build up not only a center that could play with Alex Ovechkin, but the center depth and the back end and all that stuff. And it's just like, man, oh man, can Quinn Hughes, who struggles in his own end, and a winger, can that be what gets you over the hump? And I don't know, but Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild are taking that that bet that says they think it can. And I love the swing.
I think that their goaltending took a step forward, so that was worth kind of rewarding in ways. You know, like the young goaltender in Wallstedt stepping up a level, and Gustafsson kind of holding it down, I think stabilizing. It's like, okay, I think they have some more faith in goaltending than they have in years past. Like that feels like that part of their roster construction's coming together. I think the top of the D-core, you know, whether we were talking about Zeev Buium in that conversation or now Quinn Hughes, which has only elevated it, really, really good. And then the top of the lineup when healthy, also pretty competitive. It's the depth down the middle, and it's just kind of the depth at the bottom of the D-core that remains a little bit of a concern. And I think that'll be something they can address over the next couple of years. But the other thing I was going to say about Vancouver is I think there's a cultural issue at play here too, right? Like the losses, they move on from their last head coach, new head coach in that position. I think Quinn Hughes' leadership's been discussed. Like, I don't even want to say criticized. It's just been in the same way that, like, if Cale Makar was the only voice represented in the leadership group, maybe it wouldn't be vocal enough, right? Like, he's got a passionate, animated Nate alongside him, and then the calm, steadying presence of Landeskog. Like, that's why that leadership group works so well. And then there's other leaders outside of it, right? Like in Taves. And so where I'm going with this is, you've heard of what's been going on in Vancouver, right? Like going back to JT Miller and it not working out there with him. And so I think that Elias Pettersson.
Which one?
I know. It's like, you know which one I'm talking about. EP.
The good one.
Whoa. All that to say, I just don't think it's been the right mix of leaders. I think the result then in the standings has been a part of that, that's been reflected back. And so I think for Quinn Hughes, that's part of the decision too, is needing a cultural reset. And so I think that'll have an impact, like depending on where they go with this as a team, if they can get some winning results, and that might sway him to staying on for a little bit longer to build something with the Minnesota group.
Like you said, there's some injuries here. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, like Zuccarello, that's a big name. That's out.
Yep. Marcus Johansson, who was just playing over the weekend. Vinny Hinostroza, Marcus Foligno. So like you've got some guys that are out, but like right now, Megan, and I mean, geez, are any of those guys centers? No. Right? I mean, yeah, Zook plays on the wall. And so I mean that's your top, but I mean like Danila Yurov is their 1C right now. Joel Eriksson, Ryan Hartman, Nico Sturm. I don't know. I just don't know. Vlad Tarasenko's skating on that top line right now.
I think too, like with respect to the injuries, that's hard for me because I want to weigh in on that. Like that's not going to be a competitive top line for top line, bar by bar, you know, in the playoffs. But he's a bit miscast right now because of injury, so I won't be too critical.
Yeah, no, for sure. But, you know, I look there and I don't see that top line center that like, oh yeah, that's who you need to be, you know, worried about. You've got Kaprizov, but again, it's hard to build a championship team around a wing. But I love the swing for the fences. I do too.
And I think too, like, I don't think they believed in Marco Rossi enough think they saw limitations in his game. And that's why his name has been floating out there already for some time. So in terms of that center depth too, that they're willing to move on from, I'm not sure they were sold on it anyways in Rossi, but I'm excited to see what he does with a clean slate because he did have a highly productive year. And I wasn't sold on him being like a 2C option for the Avs very specifically, but I like this player. Like I don't have a personal beef with Marco Rossi, an undersized guy. I think in, caping for Gavin Brindley, being able to find a spot in this league. I believe that for Marco Rossi too.
Yeah. Let's talk about it because I agree to your point of Vancouver. There's something
and I'm not,
that isn't working there.
Yeah, there's something that's not working there.
I think there's also been some questionable decisions. No, I'm not going to sit here and stump for, oh my gosh, his brain fell out of my head. Or oh my God. His name fell out of my brain.
Describe him.
Goalie, Shelovs. Jeez.
Oh.
I'm not going to sit here and die on the Archer Shelovs hill, but like, again, just a weird asset management decision. Again, I'm not even saying it was right or wrong. Weird choice to move on from a young goaltender that just had an outstanding AHL run. There was the whole
that
JT
Pittsburgh like really believes in.
Right. That they really like. There was the whole JT Miller thing, everything
and
that
I think there's 3 sides to that story.
Right.
But it still doesn't bode well that everybody can't play nice.
Right. And it's just they were really good, whatever that was, 2-3 seasons ago, and then they just haven't been like there's that's almost a team that like I think the deal that they made here like expedites a rebuild because they got some really good pieces and a first round pick and all that stuff. But like I'm almost sitting there going, gosh, do you want to expedite that? Or does this feel like something that you need to tear down to the studs and just start over?
Well, if they're talking about moving on from Sherwood too, if that comes to
5 first round picks for Kiefer Sherwood.
if you move on from him, it's kind of like what is left here. It's
What's
a carcass of an NHL team, and it's got the young players that I think have a lot of promise. Obviously Brock Besser's still there, but that's to me pointing to a team that needs to commit a little more solidly to the gradual plan. I won't call it a rebuild. I'll call it the gradual plan.
The gradual plan. Let's wind today's show down, sticking with big news from the weekend, but shifting away from Minnesota, Vancouver.
Quinnesota.
Did you come up with that or did you see
I
that?
saw it online.
Damn.
I can't take credit for it.
There's another bit of movement in the West. I don't think it's going to be as consequential, but it is significant to talk about. Edmonton finally makes a move. I don't necessarily know if it's the move I would have made, but Edmonton makes a move, and they honestly kind of paid a steep price. They ship out Stuart Skinner, 2nd round pick, and Kulak, and they bring back Tristan Jarry. Before I give any of my thoughts on it, what do you think of that deal?
We talked about it.
We did talk about it. Wait, after the trade happened?
Yeah. You made us talk about it on Friday.
Really?
Yes.
I thought we talked about it earlier in the week because the report was that they had offered Calvin Pickard for Tristan Jarry.
We talked on Friday.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Ah, fuck. Well, that completely messed up my transition and the way I led into all of that.
How do you still feel about Tristan Jarry?
Where I was going, I was coming all the way back around for us to take a dunk victory lap because we had said on that show earlier in the week where we had talked about how they had offered Pickard for Jarry. We were like, why wouldn't you just offer Stuart Skinner for Jarry? So this was me actually circling back to take a victory lap, and I can't even do that because we already talked about it. And now I look stupid.
3 goals against on 28 shots. They still come out with the win. Edmonton with Tristan Jarry and net. Wow, should provide way more context. 6-3. This is something like Wedgwood just like quickly mentioned. I think it was Wedgwood today. A different conversation, but I mean, yeah, goal support Edmonton. You can count on that some of the time. It's going to be harder to get that kind of goal support in the playoffs.
And I think that's where they've run into the issues in the past. And like, you could have had Jarry for nothing last year on waivers. You don't get any retention. This felt really desperate. And like, I just didn't, I was totally okay and on board with Edmonton making a desperate move where it's like, that's an overpay. But wow, they got the goalie. They made the desperate move, did the overpay thing, and got a goalie that was put on waivers last year.
That's what is frustrating. You know, if you know your exit's coming up, you need to turn your signal on and start merging. This feels like they tried to cross 3 lanes of traffic very abruptly, and that's where accidents happen. And I'm not saying Tristan Jarry
and they did it to take an exit that had like a rest stop, but like oh yeah, there's each exit coming up after this also has a rest stop.
You knew this was coming. Also, you knew you were going to have to address goaltending. It's where I'm trying to bring this back.
You've been getting 100-mile warnings, like, hey, next rest stop, 1,000 miles.
You're going to need to address this.
900 miles coming up, and they still had to get off at the last possible second.
It was stubborn because it felt like they put off addressing it, and I think there was an avoidant aspect of it too, of like, maybe we won't have to. Maybe this will be Stu Skinner's year, and it just never came. They had to abruptly catch their exit before it was too late.
Well, and I also do.
And now there's a car accident. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's not true.
I also do wonder if there's going to be an element of this too, where it's like, hey, Tristan Jarry might not be numbers wise much better than Stuart Skinner, but can he keep from giving up the goals that are deflating? That's another conversation we had today.
Yes.
Can you keep from giving up goals that take the juice from your team? Can he at least can he make plays that makes the other team work for him? Here's something I know I didn't talk about on Friday. I was really impressed. He was at morning skate the day after he got traded with navy and orange pads.
I saw your tweet about that. I was also really surprised.
Very impressive. Shout out to Vaughn. That is quick turnaround time to get him a brand new set of pads.
And I wonder, did he play in the new pads?
He did.
Maybe I won't let those 3 goals past him.
Yeah.
Be too hard on him for it.
Yeah. But I just again, everyone knows I'm a gear guy, and they have the Avs have burgundy and blue like leather strips. It's what Mackenzie Blackwood used last year to cover up the teal that was on the front of his pads. So like teams do that. You'll see it all the time where they'll cover up a little bit of color with something else. No, he had all navy blue pads with orange accenting the next day, and I just found that pretty neat.
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround.
Do you have anything else for today?
I'm not rooting against Tristan Jarry. Just feel like really bad. I feel like I've come down hard on him, and I think it goes back to my bigger point of, well, one, I hope success for him, but also 2, I think this is still bigger than goaltending.
Okay. I remember
that
talking
unlocked
about
a memory?
Yep. Now I remember talking about it on Friday. Yeah. You and I have done a lot of shows over the years, and I have never felt like Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard were a top pairing that could get you over the hump. And they've gotten them close, but I've never gotten there.
I will be curious how this shakes out for Minnesota, because I think the offensive bump that Quinn Hughes provides is going to be huge. But I also think the margin for error in the playoffs is so thin, and they're going to kind of need everybody playing at their best, both sides of the puck. And that's not to say, anything specific to Quinn Hughes. It's just depth helps with that. And that could be a vulnerability of this current roster.
All right. As we sign off, let me ask you, what do you think of Quinn Hughes the defenseman.
I like him.
In his own end?
He's fine. I do not think he's bad defensively. I just don't think, for example, I think Miro Heiskanen's excellent in his own end. I think Kale is better than he gets credit for.
I think Kale's way better than he gets credit for.
And so, like, those are the first two that come to mind. Quinn Hughes is maybe more average in my eyes, in his own end, very specifically.
Right.
Like a very gifted player, maybe just like average in his own end.
Yeah, I just
build on that. He's not huge. Neither is Kale, but I think Kale's got a little more heft to him, and so
he plays heavier.
He can play heavier as needed. I don't think Quinn Hughes has that part of his. That's not the dimension in his game.
I completely agree. And I'm just, again, I think Quinn Hughes is a special player, but I think that he has more of those tendencies in his own end that you hear people be wary of undersized defensemen on than I think some of the other guys that are in that category. That's just me. Let's get out of here.
All right.
I got to get to the airport. That's going to do it. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. These leg warmers are not attached, if anyone out there was wondering. I thought that was a really funny question.
I thought so too.
So I was looking at you and I was like, what would they be attached to?
Right. I wear these shoes all the time without them.
There was context to that. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. We got John back there behind the glass. Let's have a good week here, buddy. It's Monday. We got Christmas is next week.
Wow.
And then you enter into the nobody knows what to do between Christmas and New Year's time period. And
oh, yeah. That'll be weird. But like January is going to be bananas. The home schedule is off the charts.
Yep. And then February.
What's going on?
I was laughing because someone Blake, I think, was telling me, he's like, oh, I'm bummed, no hockey in February. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like the best hockey in February.
Will there be?
Maybe we can talk about that on Friday. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. Thanks so much, guys. Big shout out to John back there behind the glass. Also, shout out to Ashley. She's at home, not feeling well. Hope you're feeling better, Ashley.
Feel better, Ashley.
That's going to do it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.